Good morning, everyone. How's it going today? In today's video, we're going to be seeing how to create an MCP server and how to connect it to Cursor. In this example, we're going to be creating a Confluence server. We're actually going to be mocking the integration with Confluence, but you can actually make the integration yourself. And we're going to be adding two different tools, one which will list the available pages in Confluence, and the other one which will read the Confluence page. So whenever we ask a question about a particular project, our cursor is going to be able to fetch the information about that project and answer the question about it like this. So as you can see, I asked the question, is the project Smart Garden built with React? And then it checked Confluence and told me that it's actually using React Native. Okay, so let's get right into it and let's go. All right, so first of all, let's just talk a little bit about MCP and what it actually is. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it is essentially just a common way, a common means of communication between your AI assistants or your AI applications, such as Cline, Cursor, VS Code, Claude Dev, etc., with a set of tools that they're going to be able to use. Okay, now how does this work? You probably have already seen that ChatGPT or pretty much any AI application that you currently have right now, they are actually able to execute tools. All right, so for example, ChatGPT is going to be able to execute the search web tool. Cursor is going to be able to execute the search workspace tool, and it's also going to be able to execute the write file tool, etc. What MCP allows us to do is to create our own tools, which are essentially just regular functions, Python functions or JavaScript functions, or whichever programming language you want to use it. There are this many programming languages available for you to create this kind of functions. And what is going to happen is that you're going to expose that function to your MCP application, to your MCP client. The MCP client is going to be your Cursor IDE, VS Code, etc. And your application is now going to be able to execute this new function that you created, okay? So we can, for example, create a new function that will expose our Confluence pages, and our cursor is going to be able to search through our Confluence workspace now. What we're going to be doing right now is we're going to build one for Confluence. I'm not going to be going too much in detail into how MCP works, but we're just going to get it working on Cursor so that you can create pretty much any MCP that you can think of and have Cursor run it for you. So let's get right into it. So something else that I wanted to show you is how to use an MCP server that already exists. And if that's what you want, you're going to go to cursor.directory like this right here. And what you're going to do is you're going to find whichever MCP server you want to use. In this case, I'm going to show you Firecrawl. Firecrawl, for the record, is an application that allows you to scrape data from websites. So essentially it turns websites to LLM-ready data or structured data like you see right here, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to go to right here. You're going to click on Installation Instructions. Usually, whichever MCP server you choose is going to have their own installation instructions. And then after that, you're going to go right here, and usually you will find JSON object like this. What you're going to do is you're going to copy it from here like this. You copy. And now let's go to Cursor. And right here, what you're going to do is you're going to go right here. You're going to go to Chat Settings. Right here, you're going to go to Tools and Integrations if you're using the latest version of Cursor. Otherwise, it might say MCP Servers right here. Right here, you're going to click on Add Custom MCP. And inside of here, you're going to paste what you got. For this example, I need an API key. So I'm going to go get it. And here's my API key. I'm going to save this. And now if I go back to Cursor settings, you will see that, well, I have an error apparently. Let's see again. There you go. So now it's open, and here are all the tools that I have available. So here I have, for example, Firecrawl Scrape, Firecrawl Map, etc. And if you hover over them, you will see what they do. So I'm going to try the Firecrawl Scrape one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask, without any context actually, I'm going to ask my assistant, scrape this website for me. I'm going to hit enter. And as you see, it tries to call the Firecrawl Scrape tool with this parameter. So I'm going to say run tool, and there you go. Here's the resulting material, and here's all the resulting response from the MCP server function. So there you go. And here's the material, which is exactly what I have actually right here in my bootcamp website. all right, which for the record is a complete bootcamp on becoming an AI engineer from zero to hero, all the way from learning the fundamentals of AI engineering all the way to multi-agent systems, okay? So feel free to take a look and take a look around at that, all right? So now let's go back to creating our own MCP server and running it locally, okay? Now I did wanted to mention that I recommend that you create and run your own MCP servers locally, because in the end, you are having your AI assistant run code that you did not write yourself. And that can be extremely dangerous. Actually, I would only recommend that you run MCP servers or add MCP servers that were developed by companies that you trust. And this is very important because when you add an MCP server to your system, the language model does not really see the code of the MCP functions. It only sees the description of it, okay? So somebody could very well create a regular description with malicious code and have your AI assistant run it. Okay, so just be aware of that. So now that's why we're going to be seeing how to create our own and connect it to Cursor. All right, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to identify the directory where you want your MCP servers to live. And in my case, I just created my directory right here, MCP, at my home. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize a new project. Now I'm going to use V for this, but UV, but feel free to use pip or whatever package manager you want. I'm just a big fan of UV since it came out. So UV init, and I'm going to call this one Confluence, Confluence server. I'm going to go right into the Confluence server, and I'm going to just initialize a virtual environment, and there we go. And let's now open this on Cursor. All right, so now this is the directory that was just created for us with our Python version, our entry point, and then our pyproject.toml. And what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to be initializing, first of all, we're going to be activating our virtual environment. If you're in Windows, you have to do the same thing without using source, if I remember correctly. And we're now going to be installing the MCP SDK for Python, okay? And in UV, what you do is you do UV add, and then whatever Python package you want to add, you can, instead of using this, you can use pip install MCP if you do not want to use UV. But there you go. And once we have done that, we will see that the new dependency is right here. Now, what we can do is we can actually start coding our application. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually be pasting this mock of a Confluence service, okay? So essentially, I'm going to be mocking the fact that I have two pages available. Each one is going to have its ID, its title, and then all of the contents of that particular page. In this example, I'm going to be using two different projects. So one's going to be the Smart Garden Monitor with all of these key features and this tech stack. And then I'm going to be using this one, Auto Resume Builder, with all of these features right here. And the interesting part right here is that this right here is a mock, but in reality, you would create your own integration with Confluence to actually get this to be connected with it and to have it connected to your cursor. So once you have this mock Confluence service created, we can actually now start creating our server. So I'm going to do server.py. And in here, all that I'm going to do is I'm going to do from MCP server .fastmcp, I'm going to import fastmcp. Then I'm just going to initialize my server, doing like this, server equals fastmcp. And now what I'm going to be able to do, I mean, you can call it server, you can also call it MCP. I think it's more straightforward, but it has to be called either MCP or server. Otherwise, now your application is not going to know what this is all about. And then what you're going to do is you're going to create your own tools. In this case, I'm going to be creating two tools. One is going to be get Confluence page by ID. That is going to take the page ID and it is going to return just the contents of it. So it's going to return a string. And it's going to leave this empty for now. And another function that is going to be get Confluence pages. And this one is going to return a list of Confluence pages that we have available. And this one right here, is just going to return the list of Confluence pages, and it's going to return a list of dictionaries like this, all right, to actually mock what we showed you before. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to import our mock Confluence service, our pages right here. So I'm going to do from MCP Confluence service, and we're going to import import pages like this. And that's what we're going to be doing right here. As you can see, the mock Confluence pages has these pages right here, and that's the one that I'm going to be using. And now we can actually just use those pages to return the information right here in this mock service. So I'm going to come right here and I'm going to paste that. We're going to select the page by ID, and we're just going to return the content of the page ID that we have selected. And then right here, what we're going to do is we're essentially just going to return all of the pages, but we're not actually going to return all the pages alongside with their content, because let's assume that we have like 50 pages. We probably do not want to include the content of all of the pages. So I'm just going to include the ID and the title so that our agent or our cursor is able to actually just identify the ID that it needs to use and then call this other function, which will actually return the contents. And that's also a way to see that that cursor is actually capable of running multiple functions one after another. Okay. So there we have our two functions. One returns the list of pages that we have available, and the other one returns the contents of that page. And now we have to turn this into actual MCP tools. In order to actually turn this into MCP server tools, all that we're going to have to do is we're going to decorate them with @mcp.tool. And the reason why we're using @mcp is because we initialized it right here like that. Okay. And second thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing right here. And now our tools are actually tools. Now they can be exposed to our agent. But something very important that we still have to do is to add a very clear description of what each one of these tools actually does. And in order to add that description in Python, at least, what you do is you add a doc string like this, and your agent, your cursor, is actually going to be able to read this. And depending on what it reads here, it will decide if it has to use this function or not. Okay. So in this case, we have that this function or this tool gets the content of a Confluence page given its ID. And let's take the second one. So get Confluence pages. We are going to tell our agent that this function, it can use it if it wants to get all the Confluence pages available, and it returns a list of Confluence pages with their IDs and title. That way, since it knows that it has access to these two functions, it will know that it will have to check the Confluence pages first, and secondly, get the page ID, depending on whether or not it needs it. The description that you add right here is the one that Cursor is going to use to determine whether or not it has to use this tool. Okay. And very importantly, you can add the arguments right here to actually give it more information about it and what data it expects in return. And secondly, add type hinting like this. It can help a lot Cursor to figure out what format it should send the parameter in when calling this tool. Okay. All right. So what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to add the entry point right here. And in order to add the entry point, we're going to first import from our server. We're going to import MCP, and then right here we're going to do mcp.run like this. Just to be clear, from server import MCP is actually just importing this thing right here from our server.py that we just created. So we're going to go right here, and inside run, we're going to set the transport to stdio. I think this one right actually is the default one, but just wanted to be very specific. Essentially what this means is that you're going to be able to connect to your MCP server either via HTTP or via standard input-output. If your MCP server is hosted locally, you're gonna have to use standard input-output. It's just the safest and fastest way to do it. I'm going to show you how to do this with remote servers in the next video. But for now, let's stick to this. And now we can actually just add this MCP server to our configuration because it is now ready to be used. All right, so, and what I wanted to show you is how to actually debug this, because it's not very straightforward how to debug an MCP server. So what you do is you go to uv run, and then you do mcp dev main.py. And actually, I'm going to have to install MCP CLI. So in order to do that, I'm going to do uv add MCP CLI like this. And now I should be able to run this, and there you go. Now this is available right here. Let's take a look at it. And there we go. So as you can see, I'm using stdio to connect to my server. I'm using the UV command and I'm running it like this. So I'm just going to click on connect. I can see that it is working. I can take a look at the tools that I have available. I have the get Confluence page by ID. I have get Confluence pages. So I can get the Confluence page by ID 123, let's say, by ID. And there you go, I have my Confluence page. And this is what's going to be available to my AI assistant, okay? And now I wanted to show you another way to do the same thing in case you're not using UV. So what you're going to do is you do npx and you're going to do at model context protocol / inspector, and then whichever command you use to actually run this. So in this example, I'm going to be using just Python, then the file of the name of my file, so main.py. And as you can see, it does pretty much the same thing. So it opens my server right here. So I can just click it and there you go. So as you can see, it is now using the command Python and the arguments is the main.py entry point that I have created. So I can connect to it. And as you can see, it is working just like before if you do not want to use UV. Okay. So there you go. Okay, so in order to add your MCP server to your configuration, what you're going to do is go right here and go to chat settings. Now you have to be sure that you're using the latest version of Cursor. And once that happens, you're going to go right here to tools and integrations. If you had a previous version of Cursor, it's going to read MCP servers or something like that right here. So you're going to click here and you're going to see that you don't have any MCP tools. So we're going to click on add custom MCP and it's going to bring you to this mcp.json file. And right here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to create your configuration object for this new server that you just created. And in this case, I'm going to call mine Confluence. And this one essentially is just a JSON object like this. And this one right here just takes the command and the arguments that you're going to need to actually run that MCP server. Okay. So the command is going to be, in my case, I'm going to call it using UV, but you can call it using Python. If you want to run it using UV or Python, whichever, I do recommend that you come right here and check which Python you're actually using and copy the entire thing right here, okay? Same thing if you're using UV, you do UV, which UV, and you copy the entire thing. And this is the one that you're going to paste right here, okay? Because if you just say Python right here or just UV, it's probably not going to find the actual binary that it needs to use. And then after that, the second thing you're going to add is just the command, the arguments that you're going to pass to it. And in my case, the commands are just run. And then after that, I have to actually tell my command line to switch to the directory where my server actually is. I'm going to say directory like this, directory. And then I'm just going to say, where am I? Right here. Going to copy this thing right here. Going to paste this right here. So I am going to go into my Confluence server directory. And then finally, I am just going to say my entry point right here. So I'm going to save this right there. And after you save this, you should be able to come right here and you will see your server that it's starting to load the tools. Now, if you want to see the debug and the output, what you can do is go to output right here and go right here to MCP logs like this right here. And there you go. So as you can see, we can see that it found two tools. It's for some reason it's not being shown right here. So I'm going to disable it and enable it again. And there you go. I see that I have my two tools available. All right, so let's actually just test this right now. And in order to test this, I opened a new workspace that is completely empty to see if it was going to be able to actually call my tools that I just created. So as you can see, it's looking throughout my my workspace and it did not find anything. So there are no files or directory in the current workspace, so I cannot help you. What we can do is actually add a cursor rule to specify what our MCP server actually does for us. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go right here to my workspace, and I'm going to create a new file, a new directory called .cursor. And inside of it, I'm going to create a new directory called rules. And in here, you're going to be able to create the rules that are going to give a little bit more context to your cursor about what to do and when to do it. So in this case, I'm going to call it Confluence MCP, and this one has to be format MDC, so Markdown Cursor. And all that I'm going to do right here is I'm just going to describe this rule. I'm going to say that whenever a project is specified in a conversation with the user, use the available tools to retrieve additional information about the project from the Confluence space accessible via tools. Those tools will provide additional information about the current project that you are working on, such as its tech stack, versions, integrations, use cases, etc. And this one right here, I'm going to set it to always be added to my context. And what is going to happen with this is that every single time that I have an interaction with cursor, it is going to append this thing right here to my interaction as context, so it will know that it now has access to my Confluence MCP servers, that it can get more information about my application. So what I can do right now is I can just go right here and ask the question, what is the tech stack of the project resume builder? Now, if I hit enter, you will notice that it will now prompt me to get the Confluence pages. And now it got this information, and now it is prompting me to get the Confluence page by ID because it identified that the page 456 is the one that it needs. So I'm going to say run. And as you can see, we have the result right here. And now it's able to answer the question for me, even though the project is completely empty. Okay, so it may know nothing about the project because of the empty workspace, but you're still able to have information about it via the Confluence tools that we just created. Okay, so this is how this is going to work. And I hope that this is useful for you. If you actually want to create the integration with Confluence, don't hesitate to just add your API integration with it in the MCP tools. And yeah, I hope that this was useful. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this or something different. It's my pleasure to see you here, and I will see you next time.